Welcome to the Work Trends podcast from Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro. Every week, I interview interesting people who are reimagining work. And be sure to check out our Work Trends Twitter chat events calendar located at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Welcome to the Talent Culture Work Trends podcast, sponsored today by Rejig. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro, and today we have a very exciting topic, ethical AI in skill-based decisions. As many of us have observed, AI's role in our society has been rapidly expanding in recent years. We're seeing it literally everywhere, from how long we shop, to how we get our news, to how we drive, and even how we date. With all of these advancements, it's no surprise that AI is also changing the way we work. In recruitment and HR, for example, AI is being used to help identify and assess candidates. And while this can be helpful in reducing bias and making the hiring process more efficient, it is also raising some important ethical questions. So here today to answer these questions is the one and only Jonathan Reyes. Jonathan Reyes, aka JR, is a talent leader with nearly 20 years of experience growing technology and banking organizations across the US, Australia, the UK, and Latin America. He is VP of North America for Rejig and a talent advisor and futurist, helping organizations and leaders to build a world with zero wasted potential. He was previously the director of talent ops at Uber, based in good old San Francisco, leading up global immigration and mobility, employer branding, technology, learning and development, and yes, there's more, strategic initiatives. In this role, he helped Uber transform the talent experience through technology and by prioritizing the experience of talent above all. JR joined Uber in 2017 as the director of recruitment for Latin America. During this time, LATAM was the fastest growing region for Uber in the world, with the number 1 and number 3 markets, and grew its people by, as everyone's sitting down, 525%. Not only was this true hypergrowth, the region achieved gender parity during this phase, making it the first in all of Uber to do so. Before joining Uber, JR spent 3+ years at Commonwealth Bank leading talent acquisition for all sorts of cool things, engineering, digital tech, analytics, you see where I'm going with this? As well as 7 years in a variety of roles at IBM, leading talent acquisition for Australia and New Zealand. He is here with us, and I'm so excited. Let's get started, huh?
Hi, Megan. Thank you for that introduction. You make me sound so much better than I really am. I'm very pleased with that intro. Well, it's interesting to hear your experience when someone else is talking about it, right? It's a good point of reflection.
Oh, it is. Your company, Rejig, coined a very interesting phrase called zero wasted potential. What does this mean?
Look, I think we're all here for many reasons at Rejig, right? But it'd be fair to say that we're all here to achieve this mission. Zero wasted potential is really what's driving the organization, the technology, and everything that we do day to day. What does it mean? Look, we believe in a world where every person has access to meaningful work, no matter their background or circumstance. Every business has the right skills and the right roles at the right time. And kind of society can reap the benefits of diverse thought leadership and fair and equitable opportunity in the working world. There's been this, emergence of sustainability in every category, in every industry. And it's really exciting to see that make its way to human capital, right? So sustainable human capital is part of that conversation. And this is our way of expressing that. Zero wasted potential is a world where it isn't a zero-sum game where a company has to do A and an individual has to suffer, or society kind of loses out. So this is what we believe that we can do through technology.
Tell our audience more about workforce intelligence. Why is this important, and how does it benefit companies now as they're looking to the future?
We have so much data in talent and human capital and human resources. And for us, workforce intelligence is all about workforce optimization, helping you get the right skills in the right place at the right time. All of this really starts with visibility, that visibility that allows leaders to have a skills-based approach to preparing the workforce for long-term change, understanding what it is that they have, who it is that they have, and what those people can achieve and do is such an important answer to a question that we've been asking ourselves as practitioners for such a long time. Placing your people in the right roles to power your workforce has considerable payoff, right? So it's increasing current team productiveness by having the right people in the right role. By just 1% can bring in over $40 million of extra revenue for an organization. So there's this great outcome from a business point of view, but think about it from an individual's point of view, being able to grow your career, extend your skills, learn, develop, and not have to kind of be limited by what your organization can provide, right? There's no reason now with workforce intelligence available for leaders to be hiring and letting go of talent en masse. The Zero Wasted Potential mission really started with this conversation around and this experience of Siobhan Savage, our founder and CEO, of firing individuals and then hiring the same individuals 6 months later. And that's actually how I met Siobhan. And
see, it really happens, right?
Yeah, look, and I was having that conversation with her, and I personally just experienced something very, very similar and was incredibly frustrated. And think about that experience, right? You hire someone, you fire them, and then 6 months later you go and hire them. So obviously there's an emotional and human experience that happens there, but there's also a commercial experience. So you're spending money to find that person, you're spending money to let them go, and then you're spending money to hire them again. When in reality, now that we are heading into this world of upskilling and reskilling, we know that there's a far more cost-effective approach to help that individual grow and learn through upskilling and reskilling. And then for that individual, that experience is far more positive, right? Who doesn't want to grow their career? Who doesn't want to have upwards mobility? When you hear engagement surveys, it's the number one question, right, that people are often most frustrated is, I can't grow my career, and they leave organizations because of that.
It's all too black and white for my taste. I tell you, there's a whole lot of gray out there, work trends community, that we're missing, right? And you brought up the word firing. I mean, were you really fired, or was that person really fired, or is there a better word for this? To me, that's also a very black and white word.
The terms that we use, right, have such impact. And I think I'm glad that you call that out, right? So letting someone go, firing them, whatever term you want to use, is such an impactful moment in that individual's life, right? Same from a recruitment perspective. I've led large recruitment teams, and I'm like, when you make someone an offer, that's a contract. That's a contract as big as, when they're buying the house, buying a car, signing that marriage. This is a big event. And so I think we have such impact on individuals when we work in human capital that we have to be conscious, right? And have to be aware of how we can improve that.
So many companies are still unsure about using artificial intelligence in their talent acquisition and management processes. How can we dispel all these myths and help people to understand what ethical AI means, for example?
We believe that technology has a significant role to play in human processes and human capital processes, and AI is going to be a huge part of that. And we're so accustomed to AI in other aspects of our life that when you bring it across to a human resources organization or an individual, there's always a little bit of hesitation. So in the current state, there are no consistent and universally acceptable standards for ethical AI. This means vendors across all industries can call the technology ethical based on a self-assessment, without the input of legal, ethical, or global experts. At Regigs, we've always had an unwavering stance on ethical AI, and for this reason, we partner with the University of Technology in Sydney, and we've developed the world's first and only independently audited ethical talent AI. We've set a benchmark on trust and ethics, and in fact, New York has just released a law that will mandate employees to only use automatic decision-making tools that have been subjected to an independent audit. So we're really proud from a Regig point of view, and in fact, the World Economic Forum has recognized us for this, that we are setting a benchmark. We've built a vision around zero wasted potential and a product that's really helping to shape industry.
Let's talk a little bit about internal mobility, because this to me is so interesting and so important right now. What impact does it have on an employer's value proposition? And what are some of those financial implications when we're talking about this? What are the business realities?
Right now, there's a lot of people talking about the Great Resignation, right? This macro trend about individuals leaving organizations. And for the first time, there's been, a real pain around retention and at a large scale. The reality that one of our biggest tools as practitioners or as organizations is to create mobility within our current employee workforce. There are so many employees that are unaware of the opportunities for growth that exist. I was recently reading a McKinsey survey that was talking to employees, and only 1 in 3 employees in large organizations think about internal roles when they're thinking about growing their career. or finding that new job. Think about that, right? You have 50,000 employees and less than a third are thinking that you have the right opportunities to help them grow and mature and develop in your organization. It's such a huge gap. When in reality, organizations are always growing and evolving, and those opportunities exist. It's about creating transparency, fairness, and really awareness of the fact that an organization can do this. The benefits of this are twofold, right? For the employee, you're really helping them achieve that career growth, that transition, that development that they're seeking. From an organizational point of view, you're preventing retention. The end of that journey often for a candidate leads to another organization. I was reading another survey, it was, I think, Deloitte, that said 80% of all job moves in the last decade have been external. So the reality is that this internal mobility has been a huge gap within organizations to date. And so taking advantage of that is going to help you reduce attrition. There's value, right? The cost of attrition is about 2.5 times someone's salary. So you think about that, if you have 20% attrition at 100,000 organization, I mean, that number becomes really, really big from a cost saving perspective. And on the flip side, you're increasing engagement for those individuals that stay. Companies that do this really well extend their employees' tenure by 2 times. And so you've got someone that's staying twice the average. And when someone's growing and developing, they're engaged. That is such a, engagement from a positive engagement point of view, that's such significant downstream benefits to an organization that really this is one of our biggest way to invest in from a human capital point of view.
Here's a biggie question for you. Where do you believe the future of work or the future workplace, what is it going to look like? I mean, where do you see glimmers of hope? Because my gosh, we're getting a lot of bad news lately, huh?
Look, at the end of the day, everything is evolving, right? There's a lot of forces that are going to help us get to the right point. I talked about sustainability. I think sustainability in the workforce is going to become one of the primary lenses by which we develop either processes, experiences, organizational structures. I'm already starting to see that. There's also this new language of work around skills, and we at Rejig believe that is the new language and the new currency of work, where we're focused on what the skills an individual has, and it's a far better way to predict what they'll be able to do in the future. We're focusing now on potential. What is the future of an individual? What can they do in the future through upskilling and reskilling versus kind of this current status of like, what have they done? Where have they been? Who have they worked with? Looking at the past as a predictor of the future isn't always the best way to do it.
Oh, it's old school. Just call it what it is.
Yeah, it is really old school, right? And if you look at any other industry, that isn't the way to predict what's going to happen. And so with people, which is a very complex thing, and we're very complex beings, right? It's a very difficult thing to predict. We believe that skills is going to be the way to start to do that. And it's going to change the language of work. It's going to change the transparency of work. And it's going to change that fairness, right? And I want to bring that back to zero wasted potential. It's about achieving zero wasted potential for everyone that's involved around work, the individual, business, society. And so that's the language I believe we're going to be talking in 5-10 years. So it does give me hope, Megan.
Final question. Why is the user experience so important when designing and developing tech for the workplace? And why don't more organizations observe this?
Look, for a long time, HR tech, I should say, was seen as a system of record, a system of compliance, right? Something that we have to do. But if you think about an individual working at an organization, they engage with technology outside of their work, and that technology is evolving. It's focused on the experience, it's focused on the UX. And so there's 2 macro things changing HR tech. One is that the user has higher expectations. When you want to book your annual leave in whatever system of record you're using, you want it to be easy and simple, and just like doing anything else, right? Like just like ordering some takeaway, right? On your favorite app. We don't have that experience in HR. So that's one. HR functions are now solving some of the world's most complex problems, right? And so in order to solve those, we're now having to bring in technology that isn't just about recording an event, a transaction. It is about changing an experience, changing a perspective. And so UX and design becomes a much bigger part of the conversation when we're developing technologies. At Rejig, we believe that from day one. If you're going to create something that's going to change an individual's point of view, drive them to an action, get them to do something and motivate them to do it, that experience has to be a positive one. We have a nudge engine that allows an organization to communicate with individuals in a way that is digestible, that is positive, and a good experience for the user. That's the way HR technology should function in the future, the expectations that they have.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Work Trends Podcast, your favorite source for all that's new and exciting in the world of work. If you love what we do here, do me a favor. Share it with your friends, your family, you name it. And don't forget to tune in to our next episode. I'll catch up with you next time. Thanks to listening to Work Trends from Talent Culture. Join us every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for a live Twitter chat with our podcast guest. To learn more about guests featured on today's show, visit the show notes for this episode at talentculture.com and help us spread the word. Subscribe to Work Trends wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a rating, review in iTunes. Share Work Trends with your coworkers, your friends. Look forward to it. See you next time.